I meant to say, by the way, you probably know this anyway, but all of the acts on tonight will be on again in the second half, so you haven't seen the last of us yet. Our next performer, Paul McGrane, is well known around this particular building. He's the membership manager at the Poetry Society. He's also the co-founder of Forest Poets in Walthamstow, and his poems have appeared in anthologies and publications, including the South Bank Poetry, Morning Star, Templar Poetry Anthology, and the upcoming Penguin anthology, The Poetry of Sex. Paul is also the very capable compere and organiser of Poetry at 3, which once a month, last Thursday?
Yeah, first
Thursday of every month. Poetry at 3, as the name implies, is at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, open mic event which takes place here, and well worth getting along to. And it's always pretty busy from my experience. So anyway, let's welcome the man himself. Here he is, Paul McGrane.
I won't use the mic as long as you can hear me at the back.
The back is not so far away.
Yeah. So it is first Thursday of every month, of course, except January, because that's the 2nd of January is first Thursday, so it's on the second Thursday, just to confuse things. But who's around at 3 o'clock anyway? Oh, you and I are.
Could be, but can I bring a child?
Yes, they can.
Okay.
I mean, what does Ian Duncan Smith think of all these people going to poetry reading?
Well, presumably is making a list. So, I've got various star-studded poems to read to you, including Charlton Heston, Tommy Cooper, Dennis Norden, Sharda and God. But I'll start with a poem that's called Benny Hill. This bloke is sitting on a bus. We cut to where a sign says push beneath a bell. The bell is pushed. We cut again. Outside a cafe. The door says pull. He pulls the door. Inside the cafe, the waitress comes. Of course, she's young and beautiful. We have a close-up on his face. He rolls his eyes and licks his lips and reaches out towards her chest. Her badge says pat. He pats the badge. Your face looked like that actress's when you caught me with your sister at the party in her bedroom. We were dancing to old records. We'd speed it up to 45 so they would sound like Benny Hill. I've changed the ending of this scene to make it seem more humorous. You're chasing me through parks and fields, dressed in heels and red suspenders, mock angry fist raised in the air. And me, I'm Benny Hill, at last, with no responsibilities, except for making people laugh and grabbing their extremities. So Charlton Heston appears towards the end of this one. Although he isn't, I know exactly who he is, the God I don't believe in. The God I don't believe in is a man. He wears white hair, white robes, white all over skin. From the Bible and not the Quran, the God I don't believe in. This might sound racist. I found it hard to express how I don't believe in my God, but in your God less. It's not my fault. Daily school and Sunday school taught me all I shouldn't know. Heaven is above, hell is down below. Cloud inhabiter, finger pointer, can't crack a joke. Charlton Heston could have played that bloke, or his non-existent son. A couple of poems on the joys of being lazy. So the first one's called When I Was God. And on the 7th day I rested. A pity, really, that I'd also rested on days 1 to 6. Just think how much I could have achieved, I thought to myself, alone, in the dark, with no one invented yet. She used to be the one who planned, who paid for all the trips they took, who made a list of everything, who packed the bags, including his, who got them there and back again. Until they went away last week, a cottage on the Norfolk coast. And in the car she made it clear that most of this he could have done, or put an effort in, at least. Hand out of hand beside the lake, she whispered, "Look, I have to leave." And in the pub, his pals agree that living with a woman is a big responsibility. She once met Dennis Norden in a bank. She says met. He was in a queue, she was at the back, overdrawn, planning her excuses. Norden knows, Norden glasses, almost certainly Norden. What he did and when she can't recall. The bank is no longer the bank. Where she lives now, no one knows of Norden. They might say, and they do, who was Dennis Norden? But for weeks, months, years, strangers would exclaim, "Dennis Norden, you met Dennis Norden in a bank." Tommy Cooper died of a heart attack on stage, and he was also an alcoholic for most of his life. So he goes to the doctor, and the doctor says, "Haven't seen you for a while." And he says to the doctor, "Sorry, I've been ill." And the doctor says, "Stick your tongue out and stand by the window." And he says to the doctor, "Why?" And the doctor says, "I hate my neighbours." And the doctor says, "Say ah." And he says to the doctor, "What for?" And the doctor says, "My dog is unwell." And he says to the doctor, "I'm on a diet of whiskey and I've lost 3 weeks already." And he says to the doctor, "I used to drink it neat, but now I loosen my tie and let my shirt flap from my trousers." And the doctor says, "You have to quit. Your heart is weak." And he says to the doctor, "I want a second opinion." And the doctor says, "Okay, you're ugly as well." And days later, only halfway through his set, the doctor says he's D-E-A-D, pronounced dead. And they had to close the, what are they called? Those long drapey things that hang from a rail. Well, for him, it was curtains. And then the crowd clapped, and then they howled out for more, and then they all stopped, just like that. My name's Paul McGrane, which is, I only mention it again because it features in this poem, which is rather narcissistic. But I'm particularly on sort of rainy days like this, and I'm walking on the street, or anything that sounds like Paul McGrane, I automatically assume somebody's just called my name. So this was just one instance. Terribly narcissistic or paranoid. Out on a street, the stranger calls my name. It's Paul McGrane. A friend, perhaps, of a friend. An acquaintance from the dim and distant. An admirer of mine. A fan. Flattered, of course, I move in close. "Hi there, and what's your name?" to where the voice was coming from. Under his umbrella, he's holding a phone, talking to someone he knows. Someone he knows. Oh, he doesn't know me. If he hasn't seen, I can steal away. He may have said, "Rain. It's pouring with rain." So, is that the last poem? So anyway, maybe that. Oh no, there's one more to come after this. So, who remembers Sharda? I'm hoping you do, because otherwise this is a long poem if you don't. Years before I'd said I'd never loved you, we were in Heels or Habitat, or somewhere on a Sunday, staring at the furniture, the shelves, our half-imagined selves cuddle-drunk, sunk in the comfort of a sofa, when suddenly, from nowhere, Sharda appeared. It was summer 88 or 7, whatever, and she hadn't had a hit for what seemed like forever, even though many years later, on 100 Richest Divas of the Century or something of that nature, Channel 4 revealed she was a millionaire twice over. She was weighing up the cutlery, the crockery, the patterns on the plates, like everyone does, did, will always do, and you, somehow sensing a downbeat demeanour in the singer's shoulders, went over to bedspreads just to tell her you respected her music, had followed her career, had very nearly parted with hard-earned cash for one of her various records, though you could not put your finger on which one exactly. All this, of course, a deliberate lie to brighten up a twilight star, as in truth you were neither here or there about her, and I hated her, had suffered too many times, smooth operator, on top of the pops, swap shop, supersonic. In those days she was nearly everywhere, coast to coast, Southport to Scarborough. I'd been out of earshot, in mirrors, wondering if my eyebrows could be closer together. So on your return you said she'd been ever so gracious and grateful for attention, didn't even mention she was embarrassed by your behaviour. We walked out onto Totty Court Road with an egg cup probably, or a mug, in a paper-thin carrier, and I felt smug, as if I myself had had the power to make Sharda feel better about herself, as if it was I who could make her feel cared for and loved. So this is the last poem. This year, although it seems such a long time ago now in the summer, I saw this amazing thing in our garden, which turned out to be a goldfinch, which I'd never seen before, in our garden anyway. I had to Google and find out what it was. There's a reference to A.V. Rowe, who was the first guy to fly the first all-British plane, and that happened on Walthamstow Marshes, near where I live. And the Lee is a canal that runs through Walthamstow. First one I'd ever seen in our northeast London garden, up road from the marshes, turned from a tit, or what I thought could be a sparrow, by the miracle of lenses, to a tail flash of yellow and a mask of red, feeding on the seeds we'd brought from Asda or from Sainsbury's. You wouldn't and you can't believe that something like this could happen here or happen now. And back in time, before the war, on Sandy Lane by Bomb Crater Pond, Aliot Ferdon Rowe teased a plane across the marshes, wings held together with paper soaked in oil. See, there's proof on a plaque underneath the viaduct, where finches feast on thistles, where the railway meets the Lee. Thank you very much.
Well, that was God, or Paul McGrane as he's normally known. Very wonderful set from Paul, and he'll be back in the second half. So we're going to close the first half with a performer who's not been at Dodo Modern Poets before, but who I saw at one of the Poetry at 3 events here. And she's going to give us some music. She sets poetry to music, so you could say classical poetry to classical music.